Welcome to episode 12 of the Global Exclusive Podcast. I'm your host, Hazard. Joining me this week is Bharos, Cottonseed,
I think Bharos just fell asleep.
Dream,
This wasn't planned or anything.
Muspel,
Hey Bharos, I got 3 rares in a row.
Wait, 3 what?
Rares in
There
either
he
world.
is.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, me too. Like, I got a shit ton of rares this item world. It's only Hazard that's been suffering. He sucks.
Wow. And Shadow Walker.
I don't think the Dragon Quest units are late.
Oh my god. Okay, we're definitely talking about this.
Oh no.
And
Maybe for
here we
next
go
week.
off topic already,
We-
right at the start.
Will you guys shut up? This week we are discussing the new Esper units, Ifrit Rain and Diablos Soul. I don't know what their real names are.
Infernal, Fire, Rain, and Dark Spirit Soul.
Yeah, lame Soul and lame Rain. So
Ifrit Re or Re-Rain, Ifrit Re, Emo Soul.
Ifrit.
I wish my wings, now look at my wings soul.
Yeah, we had so much better names once they actually got released for the first time.
It's just Diablol.
We also got the Calcabrina trial, which is pretty fun. And we also are going to be talking about role compression and get a short intro on the Dark Visions event that's coming out next week. And for the trials and compression and DV intro, we are joined again by Sinzar, our favorite guest. We brought him back. We definitely did not run out of guests. Definitely didn't. Definitely didn't bring
The
Sinzar
rest
back
just
for that
didn't want to
reason.
come.
So Sinzar will be joining us later on in the podcast to discuss these different things. But this week we've got a sponsor brought to you by Muspel.
Are you feeling lonely with coronavirus? Do you feel like people aren't talking to you enough? Well then, this week, Global Exclusive is sponsored by Deleta's STMR. Put his STMR on your friend unit, and you will be amazed at how many people contact you, asking you to get that fucking thing out of the materia slot. Because there's nothing quite like opening up a trial and watching that friend unit take 2,000 damage every single turn.
Local man uses meta unit, defeats trial.
You have a really thick Gilgamesh, just gonna say it. I'm gonna murder you all when I'm gonna be editing this, okay? I'm gonna be strangling you all. Never do that again. Thank you.
No,
Do it, Hazard.
please,
Continue
do it
on.
more.
Do
Do
it.
it more.
Shadow is dying from this because he's actually doing this every fucking time.
No, but this is actually pretty relevant. Like, have I mentioned that Nexus at one point,
Oh, fuck him! Yes, I know
all
what
the
you're gonna say.
freaking
He did it.
autocast
He did
and
it.
berserk
I remember this.
and everything on one of the mocking carry units. And according to
Wasn't
him,
it
he lost
Kimari?
10. He lost 10 friends one day. He went to bed, woke up, and he lost another 10 friends. Then he stopped doing it.
I mean, I was so close to unfriending his ass because that was so annoying.
Wait, are you saying that we can actually make Nexus stop being an idiot if we unfriend him? Because I think that's the real takeaway here.
Maybe actually.
Wait a minute, you guys are friends with Nexus?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
I just don't bring his units to trials or whatever.
He only
Alright.
ever has an Elena up. So
I'll back him up. I like Nexus. The rest of you guys can suck it.
I like him.
Hazard, have you tried his fan unit?
Oh, I didn't. I knew what he was doing. I knew he had Avenger equipped on it and all sorts of auto stuff. So yeah, I avoided it.
Yeah, I actually brought it twice.
Until I click
that
on it by accident.
So can we talk about the units?
Let's start with Infernal Fire Rain, which is the first Esper unit released. He's a combo of Ifrit and Rain. We don't have enough versions of Rain yet, apparently. So they start combining with random units.
Yeah, so Ifrit Rain, well, Infernal Fire Rain here in GL another string of stupid long names actually. He's another SR chainer. His rotation is okay, simple. And he has 2 elements, and that's it. Next unit, let's go.
There really isn't much to say about them, is there?
But yeah, he's like pretty middle of the road in damage, like somewhere around the bottom of the top 5 or like second half of the top 10. He improves a bit with either his event weapon that you'll be able to upgrade next week or Crimson's STMR, but it still doesn't really get him to those top spots.
If you skipped Full Metal Alchemist, if you skipped Adele, if you skipped
Xuan.
Don't
Yeah.
give him reasons to say that name.
yeah, basically, if you skipped any of the past few big damage dealers, I don't think there's much reason to pull here. And we can pretty much say the same thing about Soul. I guess there's a little bit more in that Soul is currently the best mage in the game, and unless you count Fina, whose banner doesn't launch until next week, we're not really talking about them this week. But mages just aren't worth it compared to physical, really. They're
Well, that's the gospel according to Muspel, but
Yeah, but just like, let's put it relevant. So our best mage before Soul was Shantoro, and Soul almost deals 50% more damage than Shantoro. So it's quite an upgrade in mages. And between Soul and Fina, the difference is not that big. It's like Fina does about 10%
it's a little
more
over,
damage
yeah,
than Soul.
10%, yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
think-
Look, at
he's
least-
an incredibly powerful mage in that sense.
At least Fina doesn't have that stupid Transmastery reward, alright? Who wants an accessory that gives no flat match, but just 50% match? Like, that is useless on anyone except for Soul, because Soul needs his Transmastery passive. And if you have his STMR, you just ditch a TMR and never ever use it ever again.
One good thing about that, though, is that one thing that makes it a bit easier with the TMR situation is that he has 150% Mage True Double Land, or True Dual Wield, so you just need one of those Raven Hearts on him.
But he doesn't have innate dual wield, so you do have to find a source for that. I think one notable thing about Soul is he has, along with passive killers, he has strong active killer buffs for human and demon, which are probably the 2 most common races for like trial bosses, and I think against those races he probably comes out as one of the top damage dealers against them currently, even compared to physical chainers.
The problem, I would say, is that demons and humans were common. When you look at future trials, they're a lot less so.
Yeah, I suppose they are phasing them out a little bit.
Yeah, they seem
I
to
mean,
be
there's a
diversified.
Veritas trial.
I definitely do appreciate that they're putting more active magic killers on mages because they definitely need it. And in Soul specifically, since he'll be equipping Diablos, he's going to be doing a lot of damage versus those races.
Yeah, he will.
Soul is a step in the right direction, but it's not a big enough step yet.
I think one of the things they could have done with the Esper units in general is give them the ability like they did with Sayaka and Bigheart, in that they can equip any of their old units TMRs and they still get the TMR passive, because not just Soul, but Ifrit Rain even doesn't want his TMR just because you want to give him the Igon Fist if you don't have a STMR two-handed greatsword or the event two-handed greatsword that we'll get in the next few weeks. So it's like both of the units released this week, their TMR is one of those things you don't want. So I really wish they addressed that.
That has been a theme for a while, though, I'm going to say. Like,
Remember
no
Pain?
units have really good TMRs. Yeah, especially the RYP banner. Or YRP.
Yeah, rip them.
Yeah. But one thing that I think is a shame about Soul, because I actually like the units design, so I know how
What?
you think no. I know you all hate them. So he has a terrible win animation. He does, but I like the design in general. Like, they've nailed Diablos and Soul in game. But one drawback is that
Diablo.
he also has 2 elements that are quite often resisted, though, because he's literally only fire and dark, and both of those are quite common to be resisted by bosses for some weird reason.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say about this. It's a
Yeah, we're done.
You know who's actually the best mage in the game right now is Gilgamesh.
Well, you're not wrong.
Only when not using magic, though.
Don't you mean Xuan Wu?
No, you mean Redacted? No, we're not talking about that.
Yes.
Okay.
We're actually going to talk about the Calcabrina trial and also some role compression and an intro to Dark Visions. Joining us for those discussions is Sinzar. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. A second time. We love you so much. We wanted to have you here again. And I thought there was no person better to turn to talk about these types of things than you. So thanks so much for coming on again.
Sure thing. I had fun the first time, so I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Oh, you're a glutton for punishment.
Just wait until Cotton starts going like a train and interrupting every little thing you say. I can't wait for that to happen.
You have 50% more people to deal with this time.
That's true also, yeah.
Good luck to all of us.
Godspeed.
Indeed.
So how'd everyone go with Calcabrina?
So I used the best mage in the game, Shuan Wu,
Oh,
and
Muspel
the
defeated
fight was
Calcabrina.
incredibly easy.
I think
Wow, I wonder why.
Local man uses meta unit, defeats trial.
To be fair, the high spirit didn't really matter for this trial because I wasn't taking any magic damage. It was just the fact that I could use physical killers and still target the boss's low SPR.
Wait, remind me again, what is Shu Wen's, or Wen Shu, whatever's, source of damage? Is it physical? Would he be taking physical counters or magical?
Physical counters. Oh yeah, those
Physical.
counters would murder the shit out of him.
Okay.
But yeah, being able to proc the physical counters instead of the magic while still targeting the spirit, that is a really big plus on this for killing it quickly.
yeah, for monks, yeah, for that definitely.
But proccing the physical counters isn't really a benefit.
I mean, it is. The magic counters hurt. Yeah, because you can use a physical evade tank to eat the counters. While if you use a magic tank to evade the counters and the
Oh yeah, I did
and
not do that.
Calcabrina's regular attacks.
So let's talk about
I
the.
did not do that.
Let's talk about the strategy needed to beat this boss. There seem to be kind of two schools of thought as to how you can beat it. One with the physical damage dealer and one with the magic damage dealer. So Sinzar, would you explain to us like what the best strat is to accomplish this with each of those types of damage?
If you're trying to avoid most of the damage to your team, this fight is a little strange in that, and I got a lot of comments on the video I posted, like, how in the world are you covering with 2 tanks? That's impossible, you're cheating. It's because the way the mechanics work is counterattacks are on your own turn, so therefore your physical tank can cover counterattacks on your turn, and then when the boss takes his turn, it's now a different turn, so your physical your physical cover is gone, and the boss is using magic, and you can magic cover. So because all the physical damage is single target, including the counters, the easiest way to take minimal damage is if you cover with physical, and evasion does work to negate all the physical, so you can take 0 damage, or you can use just a bulky physical tank. That'll negate all the single target physical stuff as well as the counterattacks if you're using physical units. And then you can use a magical tank to cover all the magical stuff, which will go towards your provoker as well as AoE on Calcabrina herself. And if you do it that way, and you're using physical units, your team will actually take 0 damage with the exception of your tanks. So it's pretty nice to do it that way. Now, one exception, like I mentioned, is if you're using physical units. If you're using mages, that's going to trigger a magical counterattack, which is, again, fine, but the catch is there, you can't, like, evasion the magical damage. So if you're using mages, you need to make sure your own magical cover tank is really strong and they can survive the incoming counters, because they can hurt kind of badly if your tank is not really well geared.
So in other words, if you're using mages, bring Sisu.
And just to clarify, if Bharos gives a chance, even if you have re-raise on your magic tank, if they died to the counter phase because of that different turn, they would then no longer be covering for Calcabrina's actual turn, would they?
That's correct, because they'll die, because when you re-raise with cover, you're still covering, but then when the turn shifts, that cover is now gone, you've re-raised, he's lost all his buffs, and now your team has no cover whatsoever, which is probably going to be a game over on Calcabrina, because she does use some really powerful AoE magic.
I was just going to say, because I think like the gearing requirement feels quite extreme on that. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong, but when I ran physical damage, and just had my Charlotte cover on the first phase of the dolls, she went down to like 4 or 5k HP when the dolls just did their regular stuff. So I'm pretty sure my Charlotte would have been smack dab dead if I did it with magic damage.
It's true that the damage from the counters and also the regular turn stuff is very, very high. The good thing is, on the baby dolls, for example, it's very, very quick as well. So it all happens instantly. It's spark chains, but if it kills your tank, they'll re-raise, but all the damage has been covered and it won't kill them a second time. So you can almost do it with a naked tank on the first phase and just re-raise them every turn. And as long as you're not triggering the other kind of counters, like with mages, if you're using physical damage dealers, your tanks will re-raise each turn and it's fine. So you actually don't need good gear for doing it that method.
Okay, cool.
Another thing to keep in mind is if you're trying to have your tank not die is that on the first wave, the little dolls can be blinded, which will reduce their damage significantly.
But only physical, I guess, right?
Yeah, they'll still hit you with the magic, so
yeah, but
be
isn't
aware
the
of that.
magic damage the dangerous one that's killing the tank? Like, you can just evade the physical damage.
Yeah, but this is Muspel we're talking about, so he never uses evade.
No, Hazard never uses evade.
Yeah, the blind would definitely help if you're doing the bulk tanking. The blind's definitely going to help on that first fight. So I had a fun time. I did it with Edward first, so physical damage, and then I did it with Gilgamesh built for magic damage the second time. And Sinzar was right that magic damage by Calcabrina is really significant. I ended up beating that second phase in 3 turns with Gilgamesh. And the reason I was able to do it is because first turn it's basically you just use his cooldowns to unlock triple cast. But then the second turn when I did a bunch of damage, what I did was I used Dr. Aiden's Magnus shield, which puts a 10k HP shield on my Charlotte. And the counters only did remove the shield, and she was at full health when the boss's turn started, so she was able to survive the attack, and then I knocked him out the third turn. So it was really a fun strat, and one of the only times I've ever used Dr. Aiden's like Mega Shield, and it was amazing.
Oh, and congratulations on the Gilgamesh. You have a really thick Gilgamesh, just gonna say it.
I built him I built him as a hybrid damage dealer simply because it's my best build, and I can use him as a physical DPS or a magic DPS without basically switching gears. I've been waiting for this.
Your dream come true.
It's my dream come true, not only for that reason, but also because I've been waiting to use my 2 Chaos Blade Beowulf STMRs for over a year now.
Wow.
Finally a unit I can use them on.
Congratulations.
Remind me how much it took to pull the Gilgamesh again?
Oh, so I had to. So you can a 12k Lapis lap will get you 40 coins. You need 40 coins for a prism, 80 coins for a Gilgamesh. I had to go 24k, so 2 full laps to get Gilgamesh. I pulled 0 Gilgamesh actually on the banner. I pulled my 12th Elespris, so that was really cool. Really excited for that.
Her STMR isn't that great.
I have 3 of them, so it's not great at all.
Poor guy.
But yeah, so I definitely would say it was not worth it. But I do have his STMR. I use the STMR Moogle and my Omni Prism. And what's nice, I was talking to Sinzar about this actually. What's nice about using STMR Moogle on a limited unit is you're not going to get a 5th of them anytime soon.
That's true, actually. I never thought about it that way.
His STMR is fantastic.
I tell that to myself every time, but I still haven't got my first Malphacy.
Ah, wow, that sucks.
I think so are we done? If we're done with Calcabrina one, if I'm going to go off topic, it's because Malphazi came up, is that one of the best uses for the bunch of UOCs that we got this week is probably been Malphazi STMR, because I have 2 Malphazi STMRs, and that's been a lifesaver in a lot of situations. It has killers, it has TDW, it has stats.
It's my most used equipment in the entire game. It's amazing.
This episode is sponsored by Malphazi STMR. Get good if you don't have it.
I would actually argue that the better use of your first STMR Moogle is one of the evasion daggers, either locked or Zons. Yeah, because you can make anyone an invade tank with that. Like, it's so good.
Yes. I actually did that. I UOC'd my lock and STMR Moogled him yesterday. Because I ran Calcabrina, going back to that, with full evasion Zidane. And like Zidane is so nice because he has 3k attack while being full evasion. So the trial was super easy with the physical counters. I just didn't care about them, so I could slot in a finisher.
Let me guess. Big Heart.
Nah, I actually did it with Noctis first. I haven't done a big hard run yet because I'm still waiting for those very elusive 100% evasion friends with Zidane.
Does he even have an AoE move?
Zidane?
Big hard.
Yeah.
Big hard.
Oh, Big Hard doesn't. No. You're only using him for phase 2.
So Bharos, you'll be happy to hear that I actually pulled another Vivi and a Freya, my first Freya on the banner on the way to Gilgamesh. And so,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Congrats.
think it was just another Final Fantasy IX banner right up, apparently.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to actually try a true dual wield Freya finisher build at some point because she does
But that's
some
really cool.
insane damage when you can build her right.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, again, congratulations to Gilgamesh because I spent 15k lapis by doing 1.5 lap and didn't get shit either, so...
I mean, since we're talking about finishers now, would it be actually important to start dedicating some UOC and resources into actually building up a finisher since DV itself, Dark Vision, is actually coming
Hey,
out?
I wanted to ask this question, yeah. Like, what do you guys think about finishers? Like, now that Dark Vision is about, like, it's all about, I guess, doing it as fast as possible. And I guess, specifically, Sinzar, do you think finishers will help in terms of getting a rank up in Dark Visions?
Oh yeah, if your goal is to score really well in Dark Visions, then the most powerful single turn burst finishers you can fit on your team is a great choice. I'm personally not super interested in chasing the finishers just for DV because, the worst case scenario is I just take an extra month to get the rewards and I save whatever lapis I didn't spend chasing finishers. But any finishers you already own, then they definitely have a spot in DV if you want to get that really high score.
What turn do you think the finisher should be bursting at? Like, what's the I know by turn 2 is when we usually want to end it, but there's units like Sid who do massive damage, but their burst is at turn 3. Like, where do you usually cut it off? Do you think?
Most of the DV fights are actually designed to where you can negate usually almost all or entirely the damage with evasion, certain kind of covers, and either mirage or elemental resistance. So assuming Global gets the JP version where damage taken gives you a penalty, if you go through the effort to gear your team perfectly, like you bring like a mirage unit, a magical cover tank with 200% resistance of that fight, and then an evasion provoker. That way all the damage is negated. You can actually take as many turns as you want, and it won't matter. Well, then again, it depends. There's actually 2 versions of DV. It started off where taking turns was bad, and you got penalized for that. The current JP that I'm thinking of, actually, the turns you take doesn't matter. So that actually kind of depends which version Global gets. So if it penalizes you, then obviously shorter is better, but as of current day JP, you can take as many turns as you want, and you won't get a penalty for that, as long as you're preventing all the incoming damage.
I think I saw them show a screenshot. I saw somebody post a screenshot. I'm assuming it was from one of the streams or something, and it showed like damage taken and turns taken as things that influence the scoring because it was showing like the score screen. So
Yeah.
I think that's the version we're
So
getting,
actually-
at least initially.
I know absolutely nothing about Dark Visions except that it's something we should be looking forward to for a long, long time. So would you guys mind explaining to me at least what the Dark Visions event consists of and what these weapons, like how do you get these weapons?
So Dark Visions is kind of like a mix of trials and story events. And from what happened in JP is that there were 3 different phases for each of the Dark Visions, and they were released on different dates. Was it daily, Sinzar? Like every day there was a new phase open?
There's 3 areas, and on JP they were spaced out by 2, maybe 3 days apart. But
Right.
the whole thing was spread across approximately a 1-week time period.
Okay. And each of the areas, there's bosses that you need to beat with, and each of the bosses you can take 6 units, and there's 6 of your own units. You can't take friend units, and you can't take duplicate units. and for each of the boss fights, you're scored on how much change you've done, how much damage you've done, how much damage you've taken, how many turns you've taken, and I think that's it. I think that's all 5 of them.
Does it take into account each score, or does it only take like the highest score, or how does it work?
So within each area, it combines all the scores, and that's the score. That's the grade that you get. You get graded like on a letter grade scale. Like you get a S, A, B, C type deal, and for each fight you get graded, and at the end of the area you get graded. And depending on the grade, you get ranked among all the players in our server. So for GL, for everybody in GL, you'll be ranked from 1 to 500, 500 to 200,000, like the raids are right now. Like if you do enough raids, you get ranked rewards for that. And same thing with Dark Visions. You get ranked rewards based on how well you do for that Dark Visions event.
So this event feels specifically designed to make me feel bad because I'm like the least technical person, and my runs are usually sloppy.
It's aimed at the people who make those speed kill trial videos where they kill a boss in like 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah.
Yeah, people with MMX on, and doing some weird shenanigans with killers.
I know we try not to do pronunciation discussions, but Exxon?
Whatever, okay, listen. Exxon isn't that also a like...
Exxon Mobil, the gas
Exxon Mobil,
Yeah,
the gas
exactly.
company?
Yeah, gas company was what I was going to say.
Exxon Mobil, isn't Zon's TM a phone?
Yeah.
Oh god.
It's a mobile phone?
Oh, wow.
Let's just call him Mastermind Zon, okay?
But anyway, Hazard, Dark Visions, just to close it off, it looks like it's a lot of fun, and you should be looking forward to it because it's a whale toy. It's a whales event.
Let me just make one quick correction. Is you compared it to raids and the ranking. It's kind of true, but whereas on raids, like players can refresh and keep grinding higher and higher rank by just dropping lapis over and over. You actually can't do that in Dark Visions. It only takes your best score ever. And if you rerun a boss a second time and you do worse than a previous attempt, you get nothing at all. It only counts your highest lifetime score ever. So, just sitting there and grinding it over and over and over really won't accomplish anything. It's only your performance that matters.
Mm-hmm. Right,
Very cool.
You're right.
So Sinzar, you said something super interesting on the Discord the other day, because one of the things we haven't mentioned is that there are some rewards for DV coming up. Like you can grind yourself up to this 220 attack sword. I don't really know the mechanics behind how you grind to that.
I wouldn't say it's grinding. Basically, I can explain this, or Sinzar can. But basically, based on your ranking, you get a certain amount of materials, and you use those materials to craft a sword, and then you can upgrade the sword. And it goes up through various tiers. And the final upgrade is a 220 attack sword, one-handed. So that's obviously really strong. And the previous upgrades are pretty strong, too. I think it goes like... There's one that's like 180, there's one that's 200. I don't remember the exact values, but even before the final one, it's pretty good. But you can't... It's going to take at least a few events to get it all the way up there. Realistically, unless you're ranking incredibly high, I would say it's probably going to be, 5 or 6 months? Sinzar probably has a better idea on the time frame there, though.
Yeah, because that was my question to Sinzar, was you said you don't really have to be that serious about DV to get these rewards. What did you mean by that?
Well, that's based mostly on the Japanese server, and again, it could change for global, but the Japanese server is overall less total players, I believe. So it's a smaller pool of players you're ranked against, so you can kind of like just, really casual it and do decently, and you'll still get a score because it ranks you based on other players as well. So because there's less players, or not so many players, you don't have to do super well. Just playing it casually, you still get a score good enough to get the rewards. And for me personally, just kind of putting in minimal effort each month when it came out, I got the final rank of the reward after 3 months. After the 3rd month of rewards were mailed out to players, that was enough for me to get the final rank of the sword. So someone that plays it, even more casually, just goes in and just does a few bosses, you'll eventually get all the rewards over time. The only thing that really matters is how quickly you get them. And the more effort you put in, the quicker you will get the rewards.
Okay. So you don't really have to be whaled out running one big hard, one Noctis, and a shit ton of chainers. You can like do this as a casual too.
Yeah, from
Yes,
what
absolutely.
from
There's
what
hope
I
for
can
dreams.
tell,
But
it's one of those things where like
yeah, but
I'm gonna murder you all when I'm gonna be editing this. Okay, I'm gonna be strangling you all. Okay.
it's not a podcast recording if we don't do this, alright?
Yeah.
Cotton and Dream had something to say, I think.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, even if you get, I think the number one rewards, it still takes like, you don't quite get enough from 2 events to craft a level 10 weapon. So it still takes minimum 3, and yeah, usually 3 to 4 for most like semi-casual people, because similar to arena and raid reward tiers, they'll most likely expand them for global to take into account a larger player base. But also, I was just going to say, with the weapons, like we mentioned the sword, but every few events JP has been adding like a new one or two. There's also a rod, and I think more recently like a katana and a bow. So if you can't make the level 10 one initially, you don't necessarily need to start going up the chain. You can just save the material that you get from the rewards to craft the one you want. And I think Sinzar has mentioned in previous posts, and I agree, that the rod is probably actually one of the best investments to go for first, because it's sort of more universal than a specific melee weapon, and will help on a lot of mages.
So these materials you can only use for one weapon. It's not each weapon gets its own material. It's one material for all weapons.
Yes, it's one material, and you can choose. When the event first came out in JP, there was only one option. It was only the sword. So you could either craft that, and that was it. And then over time, they added more weapons.
Well, I wonder what they'll do on global for that.
And one other thing I want to mention is that you can actually see this in the crafting UI in-game right now. They don't use normal crafting, because if they did, then you wouldn't be able to upgrade the sword after you ran it through Item World. So there's like a new thing, it's called Upgrade or something, and that makes it so that you can upgrade the item and keep the Item World stats.
But actually, it would be actually a good idea to hold your upgrade materials until the rod comes out, so you can just get the rank 10 rod immediately, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That's one thing to do, just because there's a lot more good swords out there than there are rods.
I think I saw in wiki discussion, just like during the maintenance or just after it, that there might have been hints in data that we might actually get the rod first instead of the sword.
Oh, nice.
So that might be interesting as well.
Oh wow, that would be interesting. It's Gumi. It's like Gumi knows what mages need, and Alem has no idea what to do with mages.
Have you seen the newest Kuja in JP?
Yeah, they know exactly what to do with mages.
Yeah, so Alem had no idea what to do with mages, so they just how about we give it 100 billion DPT and then it will work. Hey, so they have no idea what they're doing.
It's almost like tripling the damage of a mage makes them competitive.
Wow, who would have thought?
But Sinzar, I have a question. So what units? So now I understand that you're not really like going super balls deep on doing DV, but what are the units that you found most useful for just doing high scores easily?
The kind of team comp I would figure would probably be, really well, is something along the lines of 2 really high DPS chainers, 2 really high DPS finishers, and then a breaker and a buffer that can add like killers and something like Regis, or something like Zahn that can like steal and copy buffs, and then gearing one of them to be like a provoke evasion unit, so while you're setting up, you're not taking a bunch of extra damage. So something like, just to throw something out there, something like Riku, Zahn, and then like Edward, and then some other triple cast Stardust Ray Chainer, and then like Sid and Black Olive's Magnus ability would be something that could probably score really, really high damage on a fight. Although you would need a way to imbue them, so something like Edward can imbue, and then Zahn could spread that imbue to the whole team, because something like true double hand units don't really have a whole lot of elemental flexibility usually, but if you can imbue and spread imbues, that solves that problem.
Wouldn't Olive's Magnus... So Olive's Magnus kills herself. Wouldn't that lower your score considerably because there's one KO?
That actually would. That would cost you 1,000 points. So really, at that point, it becomes kind of like a trade-off. Is the burst from her Magnus going to increase your score more than you would lose from her killing herself? But units that don't kill themselves, like Freya, Sid, etc., are obviously overall probably more useful.
Right.
It sounds like Zon would be. Sorry, it sounds like Zon would be a really, really useful unit on this because not only can he, steal buffs, he can also chain with basically every chaining family, and he can also be your evade provoke tank at the same time.
I mean, it's not just that, it's the fact that Zon can... I find Zon might be one of the best units for DV because he can steal imbues. Because it's very hard to find matching imbues for the whole team, and matching strong Imperial. So with Zon, you can actually bring a dedicated unit with 120% Imperial and a corresponding imbue for that element, and you can just steal the imbue and apply it to the whole team. Maybe the Earth weak physical DV boss, you can bring someone like Yego who has 120% Earth Imperial and an Earth imbue. And you can just spread that imbue to the whole team.
So, I had some crazy ideas about DV2, but one of the things that I thought of was Dr. Iden has two things that makes him really unique. One is that he has an imbue and imperil move on his cooldown, and his Magnus ability gives a 10k HP barrier. So I was thinking, if somehow... Well, his imbue and imperil are actually AoE, so that's great. But his 10k HP barrier could be applied to the whole team through Mastermind Zon, and that doesn't count towards the damage taken stat because it's an HP barrier.
It actually does. In my opinion, it's a terrible oversight of the devs. But yes, taking damage on a barrier still counts as taking damage. It's so silly.
I assumed it wouldn't.
I don't think Zon can copy barriers.
Yeah, I don't think he can either.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to say, speaking of the AoE Imperial and Imbue matching, that probably makes Luna Freya really good for this as well, because she can Imbue Water, Imperial Water, 180% buff all in one turn.
That's true.
And then also, with Zon, I think more than the imbues, what might make him really busted is being able to spread the strong active killer buffs that some units have for themselves to the whole team, especially the 200% ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, but there's actually one thing we forgot to cover is each single boss in Dark Visions is a very specific element and damage type that you should bring, because they're, for example, weak to physical or magic, and they have really high stats to the other kind, and again they're weak to one specific element and they're strong to every other element. So they'll be, for example, I forget if it's negative 50 or negative 100% resistance to, let's just say thunder. And they'll be plus 80% resistance to everything else. So you really want to match the proper elements always. Now, you don't have to. You can go off element. But, of course, you'll be dealing a lot less damage as opposed to taking advantage of their specific weakness.
But that's also pretty cool because it doesn't lock you into using, the same comp every week, because you actually do at least have to slot in a different way of imbuing and imperiling. Although if you're using Zon, it's easier, I guess. But yeah, still.
Oh, it's a lot easier with Zon. Actually, come to think of it, if you are using Zon and you have a unit with really strong self-attack or magic buffs, can't you just drop the buffer slot since you can just spread that attack buff around to the whole team?
Yep.
I mean, the chainer buffs itself. Definitely.
So I have a question. Sinzar, how do you think AI Katy will do in Dark Visions? Because I think that the combination of,
God,
and
here
breaker
we go.
will actually be really useful there.
I'm actually not super familiar with AI Katy, but I do know she compresses a lot of roles into one, and that's really good because the more party slots you can open up for the actual damage dealers and finishers, the less dead slots you have on that burst turn. Because you're ranked, you get 10,000 points per category, but you get 30,000 points for damage dealt. So damage dealt is the most important score that matters, as opposed to, or when talking about your total score, damage dealt is the biggest contribution.
I'm thinking about Sylvie. Her enhancements are probably going to come out next week, and she's got innate evasion. She's got good buffs. They did say that they're going to improve her breaking ability, and she's also got 3 different imbues that she can triple cast on turn 1, apparently, according to the update video. So she might also be a candidate to look out for as a party member in your DV group.
Do you know who could also be a cool member? Sorry, Cotton, go ahead.
No, Bharos, you shall not talk about Big Heart.
No, I'm not. I mean, obviously Big Heart would be good, but Kimari is actually better than him for that one turn burst. It doesn't really matter. But I was going to say Rivera is actually really good for DV against the light weak bosses, because she can turn 1 do pretty strong buffs, like 150% buffs, offensive buffs. She can do the AoE Imbue and Imperil, as well as giving cover, for instance, to one of your units that's geared 100% evasion. So that'll probably work pretty well as well.
If you... one question that I wanted to ask, just because maybe our listeners wouldn't know, do you ever consider AoE chainers versus single target chainers, Sinzar, when going for DV?
You definitely, if you have the option of just one or the other with everything else being equal, you always want single target chainers because of just the game mechanic where overkill damage will stop if it's an AoE chain, and if you do like a quad cast or something and you kill him on the first cast, the cast numbers like 2, 3, and 4 can possibly get canceled depending on the chain family. So yeah, you always want single target chainers if possible. I really, really hope Global changes that game mechanic when it comes out, but they haven't announced anything about that, so we'll have to see, I guess.
I mean, even the raids right now, if you do AoE, it kind of stops midway, so you lose out on some of the max damage. So I don't think that's going to change.
No, it's probably too ingrained to really be touched easily.
But that also brings up an interesting point, because a lot of mages, if not all, I can only think of 1 or 2, have AoE chains. And so for those like those stage bosses that only magic damage applies to, it'll be really interesting what people come up with just to maximize their damage.
Using Thou shall not be named, probably.
Probably.
You mean the best mage in the game?
Who's not actually a mage.
I mean,
Well, I mean,
just use hybrids geared for magic.
that actually might be the best, quotation mark, mage in the game for DV, because it uses physical killers. You can imbue them, and but they still target the lower spirit on the mage weak bosses.
They are AoE though, but they still get 2/3 cast.
Yeah. All of their chains are AoE. So.
Well, all the strong ones, anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, but compare them to the actual mage who are element lock and also have AoE chains.
Yeah. Sorry, Sinzar was saying something.
There is light in the tunnel here, because soon we're going to be getting the Dragon Quest enhancements that are far too late. Fuck you, Shadow. That's actually going to make Veronica a really strong magic damage chainer.
You just have to wait like 12 turns.
No? Well, okay, yeah. I mean, you have to ramp up a bit. But
a bit. Just a bit.
Listen, you just target your own fire immune unit for 3 turns, and then you're good to go. It's not like it's not that bad. It's not 20 turns, but it's like maybe 3 or 4 or something.
Sounds like some old school Kuja Thundaga +2 strat.
But the good thing about her is that she is single target, for instance. She's one of the few mages that has a single target ability.
Yeah, but who are you chaining her with? She needs someone to chain with. And if the rest of your partners are all AoE, it's not going to work either.
Yeah, that's true. You need to have 2 Veronicas and get good.
But you can't even use dupes, though. Checkmate, Bharos.
That is true.
So how do you go over that, Sinzar? Like, one of the things about mages is that, at least in GL, a lot of them are just Chaos Wave Awakened or Chaos Wave. What about on JP? I think some of them are Mystic Cross, some of them are GC. I remember some of them being a bit more different than here. Like, I'd imagine mage partners to be hard to find, is all I'm saying.
In the Japanese server, all mages, or all relevant mages, so to speak, are either Mystic Cross, which is also known as Chaos Wave Awakened, or Bolting Strike recently. That's actually a new thing in the JP. They actually have been making a bunch of mages with Bolting Strike. But the best way I found, and I've actually started doing this in the recent DVs, for mage stages, is using my 2 support units on the kill turn to start build a chain with something else, like either Flood from like Kokuryu and Leviathan can give your support chainers Flood to build the chain, or something like Water Splash from Fid that, you know, grants the AR chain to the whole party. So when it's time to kill, they'll like start the chain with Flood or Water Splash, and then I'll time it to where the mages, their chains begin towards the end of that. So that adds like a bunch of like plus 20 or 30 or something, depending on which skill, to the mage chain. And that can usually get me to the 100 chain count, which is the max score for chaining.
That's a big brain
actually a pretty
strat.
Smart idea, yeah.
But you're still not getting around the fact that the mage chain, if AoE, is gonna stop, right? If overkilling.
Yeah, there's really no getting around that, and I don't think I have ever capped score on a mage fight because they just can't get their full potential. So I always get low score on mages fights, and there's just not much you can do about that because they're AoE.
Sounds like you just need to get good.
Yeah, what about using magic finishers like Roy or Sakura or even Lulu with her Latents?
Just bring Roy, Sakura, and Vivi.
I actually don't have magical finishers on the JP server, so I don't use that. But if you have them, then they should definitely get around that. Because I think Vivi's, like, all 4 cast hit really close together, so they should all go off and all count.
Yes, I will be trying this.
I will use my Roy. I will be loyal to Full Metal Alchemist.
I wonder if Baihu might be like the go-to unit for killing the weak to magic bosses. Because he's
Wait, is he single target?
Yeah, he's single target.
Yeah.
The problem is that he quadcasts DR.
Nobody quadcasts DR though.
Godria does, but she's not magic,
yeah.
so
I mean, she's hybrid, isn't she?
no.
No.
No, she's physical.
But I mean, she can still build a chain, right?
Let's answer this. How many mages do single target damage then?
Isn't
how many mages?
Shantoto single target?
She is,
Vivid,
yes.
yeah, but her damage is pretty low though, and again, no partners.
I think Operative Cyrus has single target chains, but it's also pretty low.
No, yeah, they're super weak though, and not
Yeah.
really.
Wizard of Shantoto is single target in normal rotation. The problem is partners. Because
Yeah.
you don't need one mage single target, you need 2 that are compatible, and I'm not really sure if there's good pairings there.
I remember Sweet Nickel was single target.
The easiest way to do mage stages might just be going the magic finisher road, since like, it's just so hard to find mages that pair well with each other and are single target.
But how about chain weaving though? Like, so this is a mechanical question, but let's say you do two of your support units are dual wielding AR chains, right? That's gonna be a pretty long chain, and you try to weave in a magical AoE quadcast in there. Will the mages stop casting anyway, even though there's another chain going on?
If the cast has not already queued up, as soon as the enemy dies, it stops casting. But if the cast has already been queued before the enemy rolled over to dead, it'll finish up that cast.
So I think that's why someone like Vivi has a pretty good time, because his Doomsday has a long cast time, so he's already queued up all 4 of them before any of the first one's even done damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
This is interesting. Like, I think DV is going to be a really unique and fun event to have, because it's going to force us to look into our units, into role compression, into finding good chain partners, instead of just, we're so used to just using dupes, a friend dupe. This is going to be really challenging, I think, and fun. And it kind of leads me into the next section that we want to talk about, which is role compression. So for those of you who are on our Discord, you got to vote on a topic this week, and this is the topic you guys voted for. So this is something we've been excited to talk about for a while. And I thought Sinzar would be a perfect voice to add to this discussion, and because he does so many cool, different unit compositions. So I'm going to open it up to all of you guys. What are some ways you think that role compression can ease your load, I guess you could say, on a trial?
So first off, I kind of want to talk about like the gold standards for role compression. I think that there's 2 main units that do it better than anybody else. The first one is Cecil, who he combines like a complete buffer kit and a very complete tanking kit. Cecil is a better buffer than most dedicated buffers. Like just full stop. Yeah. His kit is insane. He's like if you fused Ignis and Charlotte into a single unit. And that's like the goal. That's the ultimate goal for role compression, which is you get 2 roles and you don't really have to compromise on any one of them. And the other unit, who's I think a less complete combination than Cecil, is AI Katy, and she's
knew
not
it.
as
I knew
good
it.
at breaking as Cecil is at buffing. But breaking is a
knew it.
more essential role than buffing. So even though she's not a top tier breaker like Cecil is a top tier buffer, the fact that you're getting buffs and the fact that you're getting breaks and tanking in a single slot is a lot more important in that sense.
I mean, to be fair, AI Katy's breaks are only 70%. So if you have a breaker who can maintain stronger breaks with full uptime, like it might be more worth bringing that breaker over AI Katy since you'll be taking less damage.
But I think to Muspel's point, it depends, because if your 70% breaks are good enough, because all you need to do is be able to survive comfortably. If 70% is good enough, then now you have those breaks taken care of and a very, very good tank all in one unit, instead of having to bring a dedicated breaker who isn't going to be as good in their secondary role as AI Katy is in hers.
Essentially, how good AI Katy is varies depending on how good your best buffer is for a given fight. So, like, if it's a boss that primarily does magic damage, then being able to use AI Katy and a provoke tank and Luna Freya will mean that you take way less damage than even if you use somebody with 84% breaks.
True. But you sure it's not your AI Katy bias showing here?
AI Katy is legitimately one of the best units in the game, but like I said, it's dependent on your buffers and on how well they fit the fight.
Yeah, actually,
I mean,
I'll give
objectively
Muspel
speaking.
a pass. I'll give Muspel a pass this time, because I think for role compression specifically, AI Katy is a very, very good example of someone who does it well.
Yeah. My personal favorite is actually not really specific to a unit. It's more like equipment, but I like being able to drop a provoker by making a support or healer or even a DPS a like passive provoke evasion tank. And that's not really specific to a unit. You can, with the right gear, you can do it on any unit in the game. But that's my personal favorite method of role compressing, is being able to drop the tank and stick that provoking job on like the breaker or the buffer is the most commonly used for myself.
Yeah, that's really nice. I actually just learned or recently started using Serena because she has innate evasion and can equip shields. So she has a quite easy time becoming the evasion provoke unit while still having like a shit ton of spirit and being your dedicated healer. So that's a nice combo.
And it's been a really popular one too. You see it. I mean, it's definitely easier with units that have innate evasion, like Kryla, Sylvie, Dr. Aiden. I think, does Riku have innate evasion as well?
None at all.
I don't think so.
Well, she must suck.
But if you have one of the STMR evade daggers, like you probably can make anyone a provoke evasion tank without having any innate evasion.
I think it's very ironic that I have both Kaito and Zon STMRs, and I'm an evasion hater. Just good luck. But I think the evasion provoke role has been one of the most popular ones recently. It just makes life so much easier for you for physical damage.
Yeah, especially with units like Kryla, right? They make it easier for people that own them, I guess.
And another thing I want to talk about with role compression is that it's not necessarily a case of bringing one unit to do 2 jobs. Sometimes it can be bringing 2 units that are of specific roles, and together they can cover another job. So, like, a good example of this is using Awakened Warrior of Light and somebody else who can provide Curaja, because Warrior of Light can't use Curaja every turn. So, and you probably do need at least some heals every turn. But there are other units that can also do heals on some turns, but not all turns. And if you kind of have them switch off, then you don't have to bring a healer. Now, there's drawbacks there, because Awakened Warrior of Light doesn't have a lot of the normal healer stuff. Like, he doesn't have Stop or Charm immunity for the party, he doesn't have Ailment immunity, he doesn't have AoE re-raise, so you have to worry about how you're going to handle that. But if you use him with, like, Fid or maybe AI Katy, that one would be sketchy, because AI Katy using Curaja will disrupt her breaks.
Muspel, hear me out. Awaken Warrior of Light and Chow. Seriously, I've used that combo so many times and I could just drop the healer slot completely.
That would work. The problem I have is that aside from Kiraja, Chow does very little.
I mean, like, but that's basically what for me, the healer mainly does. So if I just Warrior of Light and Chow handle the heals, I can bring a buffer who can fill in ailment resistance buffing duties.
I guess my feeling is that tanks tend to have some of the most robust support kits in the game. So if you're bringing a tank that has very little in the way of support so that you can bring a different support, then there's a non-trivial chance that one of the best supports you could bring would be another tank. So why wouldn't you just use 2 tanks and an actual healer instead of Warrior of Light and Chow and a buffer?
Because I don't have Cecil and I refuse to use Cecil. He is cheating.
Yeah, he is cheating, though. I'm just going to say that I am also unlucky to not have him, but he is also just too strong. I think he was like an obvious, hey, Festa is not bad. Look at this unit. You should go in with all your resources type of deal in
Spend
JP.
all those
Please
moolah.
give money.
Yeah.
Luna Freya is a unit that I personally like using with Warrior of Light quite a bit because on most turns her regeneration is enough to top the team off, and then on those big damage turns you've got Warrior of Light to drop the Curaja to top everyone to maximum.
Yeah.
You can also use somebody like Beryl, and then if you have Beryl will typically have to provoke or cover on the first turn if he's tanking. Same thing with Bosch if you want to use him that way. But if you have somebody else that can provide turn 1 breaks, like Nicole
Sylvie.
of the Epsilon Star, or Sylvie, I'm less than thrilled about using her these days just because I feel like she's redundant in a lot of cases. We talked about that on a past episode. But somebody who can handle turn 1 breaks, even if they're weaker breaks, like you could use, I'm trying to think, there's a bunch of changers that have like 65% breaks that they can use on turn 1, or
Sukiko?
60%. Sukiko, Radiant Lightning, I think Shuan
King
has
Bradley's a
one.
recent one.
Does Emperor
bunch of
Fu
different
have
units.
turn 1 breaks that you could use for that purpose?
Fu?
Fu.
I mean, if you're using Fu can just be your breaker.
You can be my breaker, baby.
Never do that again. Thank you.
No,
Do it, Hazard.
please,
Continue
do it
on.
more.
Do
Do it
it.
more.
I was just kidding. It sounded beautiful.
Yes, keep doing it, Hazard. Go on.
But yeah, I mean, the whole I think it's pretty cool because when you start looking at what you actually need to compress, there are a lot of units that do complement each other. More on what Muspel was saying, where you're not really bringing this stupid ass broken unit like Cecil to do all of it. You kind of combine 2 units that fit together very nicely like a puzzle, instead doing 3 rolls with 2 units. And that's I think is the fun part about trying to find these.
Absolutely. I think that's much more common to see. I remember using Aerith, for example, with Sylvie, because Aerith has had general mitigation. When she came out, it was pretty rare to have in the first place. But she was terrible at removing ailments and stat breaks. So combine her with Sylvie, who has who was missing big time, was the general mitigation, but she's got typed mitigations and also the stat and ailment resists, and they were a very, very good pair together. Luna Freya, Sinzar mentioned Luna Freya, she is so good to pair with a healer or another tank that has heals, because you can often replace the healer role. Or, for example, I use her paired with Dr. Aiden and let Dr. Aiden use other parts of his kit, because Luna Freya's regen is so strong I often don't have to heal in the first place.
Yeah, but just going back to what Sinzar said before about the go-to tip is literally putting your evasion stuff as well as the Moogle charm on a unit, and there are a lot of units that actually have innate evasion. So go over the list of your roster in FFBE equip or something, and just look at who has innate evasion and see what kind of cool shenanigans you can figure out through just equipping some more evasion on them and making them provoke tank. Provided you have.
I want to mention the wiki has a page that lists every unit with evasion and how much they have, and that if you're not sure who you have that has it, you can look at that and that'll help you figure it out.
Yeah,
because that's super easy usually. If you have Moogle Shield, K-Producer's Jacket, and Moogle Plushie, K-Producer's Jacket and Moogle Charm, you can do this fairly consistently with the right units.
I guess what we do have to mention is that there's one big caveat with the evade provoke support builds, is that you do need Moogle Charm. So if you weren't around for that event and you don't have it, it's going to be a lot harder to get a unit to be able to do that.
Lots of STMRs. Well, not lots. I think just maybe even Mastermind Zon might be enough.
Is
Yeah.
it like, but you still need the provoke, the passive provoke part, like,
Oh, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah, you'll need other event gears, and it'll take more slots, but there are other combinations that
Yeah,
are
like
possible.
yellow balloon and wrapped gift, for instance. But then you're using 2 accessory slots, so you definitely need an STMR to get that evasion up instead.
Yeah, definitely much
Hey.
much higher difficulty.
I'm kind of wondering if we should have had this conversation next week when Sylvie enhancements came out, but since her theoretically her enhancement should come out next week. But
Wait, but I want to ask, where did we get Kiyomori from? You know, the 10% evade katana. Where did we get that from?
tactics. It was I think it was a tactics event.
Very, very,
It was
very old event.
Orlando's
Tap-
banner event. They already reran it once.
Wait, they have?
Yeah.
Shit, I'm an idiot. I never got the
They
second
reran it
Kiyomori
like
then.
a year ago, maybe more.
Okay. So could you get 2 Kiyomoris?
No, the purchase
No.
amount didn't reset.
Oh shit, too bad. Because I was just gonna say, one really cool thing that I figured out was using Jiraiya's TMR to dual wield 2 evasion katanas for any unit. That's a lot of evasion in quite a small slot set if the unit has 50% innate.
Aloha
Draw.
Laswell has an STMR katana with 10% evasion, but it is an STMR.
Or you could just use one of those daggers.
Dark Knight Leon has a TMR. It's a sword, but it also has 10% evasion on
Yeah,
it.
but then it doesn't work with Jiraiya because Jiraiya gives you dual wield katanas specifically. Although if you already have dual wield, it works. I guess.
It would be a very slight upgrade because if you just use like a Ring of the Lucii or Aloha Lasso TMR, you get 25% on that accessory slot. Whereas if you use Jiraiya's TMR, you get 10% from that, and then you get 10% from each weapon, so you get 30%, but you're taking up 3 slots with it.
Wait, it's only 10%? I
That's
thought it was
correct.
20. Okay, my bad.
Yeah. Plus, the shield slot is usually pretty important for that, be it either for Moogle plushie, Genji shield, or even like Curse shield, because that's 20% evasion if the status ailments
Yeah.
aren't
With,
an issue.
with anything involving Jiraiya is that if there's something about him and it seems like it could actually be good, look again because it's not.
Wow. What a hater.
Oh, man.
Hey, I
No, but I actually use this to very high effect on my Sieghard because, like when we were talking about roll compression, so Machina is a breaker that chains AR. Sieghard can also chain AR, and if you slap dual wield on him, he can chain quite a long chain for Machina that you can actually finish. He can only do it every other turn, but it's usually good enough for actual finishers like, Noctis.
listen. I don't know if you've ever actually tried dual wielding AR, but AR chains are the worst things in the world to try.
No, sorry,
and
did I
do
say
cast.
AR? I meant
Yeah.
Absolute Mirror.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's like
AT.
okay. I didn't think Machina had him, but I'm not so familiar with this kit that I was going to call you out.
No, he's AT. My bad.
One thing I'd like to mention is currently the Moogle Charm and K-Producer's Jacket are limited, and those are some of the only or best sources of passive provoke. They did add more permanent sources in the Japanese server. It's really recent in the Japanese server, so it's probably far away from global. But the CG Vaughn's STMR is a sword with evasion and 30% draw attacks. And the shield on Signacio, the Japanese version, who is a permanent unit in Japan, is 50% draw attacks on a shield. It's his STMR though, so it's expensive gear, but at least it's permanent gear and is an option for people to get without relying on limited stuff they might miss.
Way to rub it in, man.
Wow, that Vaughn STMR though. How much evasion does it have, Sinzar?
Vaughn's STMR is a sword with 30% evasion and 30% draw attacks.
It's stupid.
Holy shit, that is strong.
Yeah, I think Vaughn
Van
was
is the new Cecil, isn't
Yeah,
he?
Vaughn's like the next perfect roll compression
Yeah.
unit.
Combine both.
Vaughn's a literal after Cecil, he's probably the most broken thing that Alem has ever produced.
And probably very relevant because Alim started implementing break resistance in Chows again.
I want to ask you guys real quick. Give me your best 2-unit roll, like your 2-unit pair that you found the most useful in roll compression.
Rivera and anything else, because Rivera can heal and give cover.
Uh,
Chow and Warrior of Light, he's the goodest boy.
That's a really cool combo, though.
I've used it with great success on a few trials actually. Like, you can literally drop a healer slot. It's beautiful.
Yeah. But one thing I want to say about the Rivera thing is that, so what we did just say is that the actual draw attack gear is limited. So that's the one that's tricky to get. Evasion is easier. It's in the permanent pool. And if you've been around for a while, you have like 20-sided dies and shit. But so the thing is, what Rivera can do is she still heals just as well as Dr. Aiden, but she can also give a unit, she can also give AoE Mirage as well as give a unit cover. So, since it's much easier to gear like your breaker for just evasion, and then have a Rivera as your healer, if the trial doesn't do like bonkers damage, of course.
I found that Shin and Warrior of Light actually work pretty well together. Warrior of Light's downside is that he doesn't have 100% uptime on his 50% mitigation, but Shin's downside is that his mitigation isn't available on turn 1. So they actually cover each other when their mitigations are down, and Shin, for his low breaks, provides extremely good buffs, while Warrior of Light also provides healing, and HP barriers, which Chin is also missing. So I thought those two work really well together.
Actually, a quick thought, wouldn't Chin also be a really good unit for Dark Visions?
Yes.
Well, since he can grant like chains to almost every single family, and all with a lot of elements.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I don't know what Sinzar would think, because like he doesn't have imperils. I think that's one thing that Chin is missing.
He does, but they're weak.
Oh, does
Yeah,
he?
but support chains to get
They're
the
only,
chain
they're
count
only like
number
70% in perils.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good chance that you're bringing at least one unit from the proper element, and they can almost always provide the imperil. And as long as one person on the team has imperil, the whole team has imperil.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, true.
And I remember in JP, a lot of people use Elephant because she has AoE Imperil. And no, sorry, AoE Imbue, I think?
up. Light
Whatever.
imbue, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for light.
and she's a breaker, so.
And the buffer.
Now that
actually.
now that we're back on DV, there's a question I wanted to ask while we were talking about DV. Is so what are the best physical chainers without a huge setup?
Edward, Elric.
Edward. Are we talking about like actually physical for bosses with low defense?
Yeah, exactly. So not your favorite unit.
Isn't
Yeah,
Edward
Not redacted.
chains AoE?
Yes, they
No,
are.
his regular chain is AoE, but his cooldown isn't. So if you use a cooldown on the first turn to set up the damage, you store on turn 2. On turn 3, you can dual cast 2 AoE and 1 single target damage, which should be able to last all the way through.
But also,
Yeah, but
I was thinking like if you either can do damage turn 1 or turn 2 with your full potential. Those are the units I was talking about. Although it doesn't really matter, I know, because Sinzar we kind of think that we're gonna get the not damage taken route in GL. Although Sinzar, like, has it really been so that every DV you have been able to negate the damage fully?
Truth be told, on the Japanese server, they change the rules almost every single month. It's not like major changes, but they're very obviously are still making adjustments and making updates every single time. So, but there was only one single month where damage taken didn't matter. They tried it for a month, and I guess Dark Visions became too easy or something, and they changed it back to where damage taken does penalize you again.
Yeah, but like, can you still negate it with evasion and or elemental as cover? Has that always been a thing?
Oh, yes. With the exception of the bosses, the final boss of each area is usually they're not trial level, but they're definitely something you need to like take seriously, and you can't always just go in there with a random team with no support or whatever and still win. You kind of need to, take it more seriously with breaks. Sometimes even a real tank, etc.
actually, one quick
okay.
question. You're talking about areas, Sinzar, like, so presumably each area has a few different bosses, right? Can you bring a different team to each boss?
Yes. Each boss is a completely standalone battle that you can build a completely different team for every single one.
Oh boy, I have to build a team every freaking time.
And it's
You
all
can just
the
bring
gearing.
Gilgamesh.
Imagine all the gearing.
Regarding what we were asking earlier about which physical units have good early burst, there's actually somebody that I think he is falling behind, but Aldor King Rain can burst for about 37 billion damage on turn 2. which is very high for that early. That's close to the highest burst in the game.
His AoE LB? It's LB still AoE, which still bothers. But then again,
it's single cast, so it doesn't matter.
It's single cast, so it doesn't matter.
cast.
Yeah.
That's why I always take it
Yeah,
for
but then
raid.
you have to bring like an optimal partner because, and not many people has a limit break like that.
Zon, baby. Zon again.
And if you can get an external imbue and imperil going, then it would go even higher than that. So
Yeah.
But
one of the
hey,
things.
by the way, doesn't Rain do a lot of damage turn 1 too due to his like weird ability that gives him high mods on the very first turn of the fight?
I think his damage on turn 1 would be okay, but the problem is that if he's doing that, then he's not setting up for turn 2.
Yeah, you need to somehow fill up for LB.
You
Externally.
want to use the big cooldown, and you want to use Soul Blood to get the huge LB damage buff.
Yeah, I was just thinking if you really have to do a lot of damage turn 1, like where does he rank? Did anyone look at that?
Yeah, his turn 1 damage is pretty bad. His chaining ability, his SR chains are really, really bad.
Well, no, on turn 1 he has a buff on turn 1 that gives him a pretty big mod boost.
Huh.
It
like a really
normally
big
doesn't
one.
come up because all the calculations have him doing other stuff on turn 1.
Oh, the 4 times modifier boost?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how good it actually ends up being, but it's not nothing.
Yeah, it's probably won't beat as LB, but I was thinking like if you have no other options, will AK Rain, which is a staple unit that a lot of people like and have, gonna be a good turn 1 option.
Who chains with it's Extreme Nova. Okay, yeah. There's a few. Elena.
Hyo, Esther, Zon.
Yeah.
No, not Esther.
Elena.
Elena
Not
and
Esther.
Zon.
Kimono Ayaka does.
Yeah, I think it's...
Wait, the other Rain, the Rain tank as well, does he?
No.
Yeah, but almost. And Sakura as well. BS Sakura. But a quick question to, maybe Sinzar knows this, but so how about hybrid units? So they do physical type attacks, right? But they still do damage mitigated by spirit if you gear for magic. Because are the DV bosses, do they have like actual physical mitigation, or is it rather that they just have super high stats for defense, for instance?
In the very early Dark
It's just
Visions, it
stats.
was assumed that it was mitigation because using the wrong type just dealt so low damage. But after people went in there and actually extensively tested, it's just high stats. Like, for example, the boss weak to magic will have like 100 spirit and 10,000 defense. I'm not sure, I'm just making up numbers, but it's just a really extreme stat spread where using the wrong type does a whole lot less damage.
Right, but wouldn't that mean that then hybrid units that can gear for high magic would be decent since they usually actually have single target chains?
Yeah, they should work fine if they're geared for the right stat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to say earlier, but just, I don't have much of a plan for Dark Visions, but I'm thinking on at least some of the magic stages, I'll probably just try out Kurosame, because Triple AT is easy to have partners for, and yeah, I
I
can build
forgot
my
about
magic.
Kurosame.
Using his
Yeah.
So
STMR.
does
Could do
everyone,
that.
Cotton. So does everyone.
I actually could do that. Kurosame and Aurora Freya
never forget.
Triple AT. That might work actually. Yeah.
That's a good tip, Dream. I'm actually going to break out my 3 7-star Kurasames with STMRs.
No dupes.
No dudes, remember?
But you can only
Yeah,
use one.
no, I just wanted to say how incredibly unlucky I've been with Kurasame.
Alright, we probably should wrap this up about pretty soon, but we haven't really finished it up. So Dream, what is your favorite combo when it comes to roll compression?
I use basic bitch team comps, so I don't really roll compress that much and don't have a good answer.
Aw. You should pull more.
Yeah.
Spend that credit card.
Well,
No.
my favorite combo
Never.
is Sylvie
My
and
spending
because
is-
it allows me to use Nightolita. All right,
of course.
serious
Of
answer
course.
though. Dr. Aiden and Luna Freya has been absolutely incredible, and there's nothing they can't do together so far.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I wanted to say was, but I didn't say it because it was so overpowered. Was Awaken Warrior Light and Cecil are
Yes,
you.
that is
Just like,
not.
no,
Yes,
no.
no.
they're
no.
actually
that is,
so
that does not
OP.
count. Okay,
Like,
that does
they're-
not count.
Because Cecil is a better support than every support out there, and Awaken Warrior of Light has like half a healer kit on him. Those two have never left my team as soon as they were in there, so it's like,
I'm just waiting for Sinzar to say Russell and Jiraiya as his combo.
Wow.
the combo that I use most often is probably Cecil and Warrior of Light for the exact reasons just mentioned. But if I was gonna say one that is a little bit more obscure, it'd be Tsukiko as a breaker and a chainer. Not for damage, but she can break and peril and chain like 3 or 4 families like really well. And I've used her on quite a few trials. Not recently, but she was my breaker for like 5 or 6 trials in a row a few months ago.
That's pretty sweet.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Oh, and that reminds me of another DQ thing. Mordegon can break and do single target damage once he's buffed. So great for DV.
But you have to use Mordegon. So
Yeah, but he can chain
Bharos.
with Veronica, so if you went in on the DQ banner...
To get Mordegon, you would have had to pull on the DQ banner. And everybody knew
Yeah,
that
didn't
the
everyone?
DQ units wouldn't get buffed until they were no longer relevant.
Let's see, okay? Let's see. The Gumi can still prove me wrong, okay?
Also,
Like,
this
we can
is
still
yet
see
another
this.
limited banner for you, Bharos.
Yeah, I have emotional ties and I have
Bharos?
terrible decision-making skills.
I have a precedent to remind you of when you're thinking of how DQ is definitely coming. Just Cause.
Yeah, okay, but there is a difference, okay? Because Just Cause never got like a hint on when it's coming, so it can literally come in 10 years and it's still fine. Whereas DQ, they did say they were going to release them when the meta is caught up, which it already has, in my opinion, so we should already have them.
Hey, Just Cause is actually free on the Epic Store now. Like, we could get a Just Cause banner on Thursday.
Maybe that's the collab. Maybe that is the collab. Let's go.
Oh boy. Well, I hope we get DQ soon, just so Bharos doesn't have to whine about it anymore. But
Yes.
it sounds like DV is going to be a lot of fun. Roll compression has been more and more important as we've been going on. We wanted to thank Sinzar once again for coming on to the podcast and talking about these different things. Make sure you guys go on his YouTube pages, find your favorite video, and find a unit you don't like that he used, and make sure you comment on how it's absolutely not fair that he used that unit. He really loves those comments, so make sure you drop a bunch of them. I know that's it. I'm going to be doing as soon as we stop recording this podcast.
Every Cecil run, every Awakened Warrior of Light run.
All right, that combo is absolutely ridiculous, though. So definitely cheating. Yeah. But thanks again, Sinzar. I appreciate you, as always, coming on the podcast. Hopefully there'll be more runs in the future.
Had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you guys next week. Cotton, take it away.
Wait, what am I supposed to do?
Choo choo!
Choo choo.